The COVID-19 vaccine is unique because it is extremely effective. I'm sure most of you all have heard diseases like mumps, diseases like pertussis, diseases like polio, and you don't hear of any of those diseases anymore, or you don't hear about them too much because we have very effective vaccines. The COVID-19 vaccine has a similar efficacy. It's up there at a 95% efficacy. And what that means is if you have 100 people who've got the vaccine and another 100 people who don't have the vaccine, if everybody got exposed to COVID-19, you'd have only 5 people out of the vaccinated group that get ill. So it's an extremely effective vaccine. I absolutely do think that the COVID-19 vaccine is needed to get back to some sort of a normal lifestyle in a safe way, especially to protect the vulnerable population of patients, which are elderly people, patients in long-term care facilities, patients who are sick in the hospital, and especially immunocompromised and elderly patients. One thing that we need to understand is the vaccination prevents us from having the disease, so symptoms of the disease. It may not prevent us from actually getting infected. So there's still a chance that even if you got the vaccine, you could get infected and transmit it to somebody else. So I still urge you, even after you get the vaccine, to still wear a mask, to still socially distance, and to wash your hands, the 3 W's. So a lot of people are asked the question how this vaccine was developed so fast. It usually takes many years to develop vaccines that are effective. This vaccine had a couple of factors that helped it along its way. One is the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic that took many lives and continues to take lives, and a lot of administrative support to getting this vaccine fast-tracked. So I'm sure a lot of you all have heard of Operation Warp Speed. Now the question comes is, okay, we did it really quick. The scientists got this vaccine out really quick, but at what cost? And the cost was exactly that, dollar bills. So the government actually told these big organizations like Pfizer and AstraZeneca and Janssen that they would absorb the financial risk of going ahead and developing this vaccine so that these private sector companies could do so safely without being worried that if the vaccine was not a good vaccine or if it was not effective, they wouldn't bear a large financial burden. So that's how the vaccine got out this quickly. We have good data that the vaccine is safe and extremely effective. And so, the FDA held a meeting over the last few days, and fairly unanimously, with just a few people voting against the virus, decided that to go ahead and to give it an emergency use authorization because they determined it was safe and effective. The point here is that the vaccine prevents symptomatic disease. It may not prevent you from getting infected with COVID and not having any symptoms. So if you're infected with COVID and don't have symptoms, you can still transmit the disease to people who are close to you and people in your family, which is why it's very important for you to wear a mask, wash your hands, and socially distance as recommended. You can still breathe in a virus that somebody else is having, and you can get a mild infection, but you may not even know it, but you can spread it. But nobody knows the answer to that because we don't have the data. Yeah. So as of now, we should assume that that's a possibility. There's also no need to get tested for COVID, either the PCR testing or the antigen testing or the antibody testing prior to getting the vaccine. So patients who have had COVID-19 disease, or if you as a patient have had the disease before and have been diagnosed with a PCR and an antigen test in the past, you may have developed a certain degree of immunity to the infection. It is still recommended that you get the vaccine, but it is possible that you can delay taking the vaccine for about 3 months. The state has its own guidelines on who should be prioritized to get the vaccine first, because it's going to be a limited supply of vaccine coming in. As the months roll by, the vaccine production will increase, and it is estimated that over the next 3 months, the U.S. supply of vaccine will hit about, I believe, about 100 million doses to 200 million doses. So as an institution, I believe we'll be following state guidelines regarding who is prioritized to getting the vaccine. This is available at the state website. I suspect the vaccine will be available to the general public by maybe April of next year. That should be a reasonable timeline. So we don't have the complete answer to that question. As of now, the recommendation for the vaccine that has received the EUA, which is the Pfizer vaccine, is that the vaccine be given in 2 doses. 21 days apart. That's the way they studied it in the trial, and so that's the way they've recommended that it be administered. When a vaccine is approved, a group of scientists have to get together, a group of scientists who are fairly independent, who are not really connected with the development of the vaccine, who don't have any personal interest in the vaccine coming out, get together and look at the data that's available in the studies and the trials that have been done on the vaccine. Usually, the FDA will gather this group of scientists and they would grant an FDA approval. But in these unprecedented times with the COVID-19 pandemic and Operation Warp Speed, the development of these vaccines have taken place very quickly, and the need for these vaccines to be released is urgent. So based on that, the FDA has not approved the vaccine, but has granted an EUA, which is an emergency use authorization. It is a fairly long document that describes the findings in the trials and educates patients and the people who are getting the vaccine regarding what potential side effects they may experience and what they have found based on the studies that they have done. At this point, although the vaccine is very effective and although we recommend that you get it, I certainly will get the vaccine myself as soon as my turn comes to get it. We are not making it mandatory for anybody to get it. As long as the vaccine is under an emergency use authorization, I believe you will have a choice to take the vaccine or not. The COVID-19 vaccine does not have any live virus in it. So the vaccine itself does not cause COVID-19, the disease. The bottom line is COVID-19 vaccine doesn't cause COVID-19. Every now and then, people may experience a few side effects. A few people may develop a fever, a low-grade fever. The fever indicates the reactogenicity of the virus. So it indicates that your body is actually working on the code and building that immunity to COVID-19, and it's actually sort of a good thing. So far, the FDA brought a group of people together to look back at other viruses, at other vaccines that they have approved historically, and they found that if any serious side effects were to occur, it would occur in the 2-month time frame, which is why they decided that they would give the EUA, or they would at least meet to decide to give the EUA after they had 2 months of data after the people got the vaccine. And within these 2 months, they found no serious side effects out of the range that they would consider the risks to overwhelm the benefits of the vaccine. So they will continue to study this vaccine going on for another couple of years and continue to get data, and you can help with that data collection in many ways, and you can go on the CDC website to find out there are apps, there are ways in which you can communicate side effects that you've had, and there's ways in which the government can get this information back to decide if there was something that they missed in the first 2 months of the safety analysis. But the scientists and the experts believe that it is very unlikely that some unknown serious side effect could occur after 2 months that they haven't already caught in those 2 months. There have been some side effects that have been noted, as have been noted for almost any vaccine that's been approved. One of the side effects that has been noted, not in the United States studies, but when a vaccine was administered to 2 patients in the United Kingdom, was that the patients developed anaphylaxis. Now, in those 2 patients, both those patients had a previous history of anaphylaxis. So as of now, the recommendation would be to avoid the vaccine if you've had an anaphylactic reaction to anything or other vaccines or any food substance. If you've experienced a severe allergic reaction or anaphylaxis, you may want to delay taking this vaccine. The truth is we don't have any data on those 2 patient populations because they were not included in the trials that led to the emergency use authorization. The experts who have debated this topic believe that it is safe and that if somebody who is pregnant wants to have the vaccine because they're at a high risk of getting COVID-19, then they should talk to their provider and have a discussion about the risks before they move ahead with the vaccination. So the vaccine has not been tried out on young children. So young children have not been included in any of the trials that have led to the emergency use authorization of the Pfizer vaccine. So they will not be eligible for getting the vaccine. So this vaccine has been extensively studied from a safety perspective. There have been very few grade 3 or severe adverse events. I think it's about 0.5%. They did notice a slight increase in the number of Bell's palsy cases that was seen in the patients who got the vaccine. Bell's palsy could be a temporary or long-standing paralysis of the 7th nerve, causing your face on one side to not move. But on analyzing the data, the FDA and the panel appointed believed that it was inconsistent with the vaccine causing it, and it was just an association that happened to happen. A good way to think about this would be to think about other diseases. So there are close to 500,000 cases of cancer diagnosed in a year in the US. There's close to 1.5 million strokes and cardiovascular diseases like heart attacks that occur in patients in the US. And it is quite possible that somebody is going to have one of these, a heart attack or a stroke, after getting the vaccine just because they would have got it anyway if they were at high risk. But that does not mean that the vaccine indeed caused that. And the way they're going to look at this and to make sure that it's not the vaccine causing it is to see how the data pans out over the next few months and years, and to see if the rate of increase of these particular illnesses goes up in a population of patients who have been vaccinated. But as of now, like the data says, and like the panel has spoken as far as the EUA is concerned, the severe safety concerns were not very serious. This vaccine, I believe it came out very quickly, but I don't think that the scientific process was compromised in any way. I've followed the developments of this vaccine closely over the last few months. I have heard Dr. Fauci talk about the vaccine in detail, and I have full faith in this vaccine. On top of that, I've actually believed that this vaccine is probably one of the best vaccines, new vaccines we've seen in a while, and I'm optimistic that it will make a big change in how this pandemic unfolds over the next couple of years.